Okay, today we're going to look at a different method for GCF and LCM, greatest common factor and least common multiple. Before, when we did this, we used two different methods, one for GCF and one for LCM. But today we're going to use the Venn diagram, which includes both. We can do both on the same format, using the same strategy. So let's look at a problem for GCF and LCM using a Venn diagram. This one we have factors of 12 and factors of 18. And so when we do it this way, we're going to start with a factor tree. So we'll do the factors of 12. You can remember, use any factor pair you want. I'm going to use the factor pair on here 3 times 4. Now 3 is prime, so I circle it. 4 is not prime, so I still break it down into 2 times 2. Both of those are prime. So my prime factorization is 2 times 2 times 3. Then we're going to do prime factorization for 18. Same way, factor tree. Any factor pair to start. I'll use 3 times 6. 3 is prime. Break down 6 again into 2 times 3. Both 2 and 3 are prime. So the prime factorization there is 2 times 3 times 3. Now what I'm looking for is, what do they have in common? What's common to both sets of prime factors? And that's going to go in that middle section of the Venn diagram. That's where we put all the numbers that are common to both 12 and 18. It goes in that overlap section. Anything else will go on the outside. So when we look at 12 and 18 and say what's common to both, we see that we have a 2 common to both. Change the color. We have a 2 common to both. And so I'm going to cross out 2's on both of them and then write 2 in the middle of the Venn diagram. Make sure you cross out a 2 on each one before you do that. Then we say, okay, what else do we have in common? We have a 3 in common. So we cross out a 3 on each one, put it in the middle. Then we look and say, do we have anything else in common? We have a 2 over here on the 12 that's left over, so we put it over there on the 12, and a 3 on the 18. So that's our prime factorization, and we have our Venn diagram all filled in. Now we can get GCF and LCM from the Venn diagram. So we look at the part they have in common. Remember, least common multiple, greatest common factor. The factors they have in common are found right there in the middle, the overlap. Those are the common factors, 2 and 3. And since they're factors, remember, that means we multiply them. So the greatest common factor is 2 times 3, or 6. The least common multiple is what both numbers go into. So they both go into the product of all those numbers. 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. So all the numbers there. 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. And remember, you can multiply in any order you want. You can combine them in any order you want. When I look at this, I think it's easier for me to say, okay, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 9 is 36. So the LCM, the least common multiple, is 36. That means that 12 and 18 both go into 36. That's the smallest number they both go into. They both go into lots of numbers, but that's the smallest one they go into. Let's look at this one, factors of 30 and factors of 45. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a factor tree to find the prime factorization of 30 and 45. So 30, I'll choose 5 times 6. You could have used any factor pair you want. 5 is prime, so I circled it. And then 2 times 3. So 2 times 3 times 5 is the prime factorization of 30. 45, I'll use 5 times 9. 9 is 3 times 3. Those are all the primes, so 3 times 3 times 5. So that's the prime factorization of each number, and then we're going to fill those in the Venn diagram. So what do they have in common? They each have a 3 in common, so we cross out a 3 on each one and put it in the middle. They also each have a 5 in common. Cross out a 5 on each one and put it in the middle. Nothing else in common, so we have a 2 left over for the 30 and a 3 left over for the 45. So that's the whole process of filling in the Venn diagram. I'll shift these down so we have a little room. So the greatest common factor, the common factors are in the middle, so 3 and 5. So the greatest common factor is 3 times 5, or 15. The least common multiple, we multiply all the numbers together. So 2 times 3 times 5 times 3. So that is the least common multiple. And again, we can multiply those in any order we want. And I like 2 times 5 is 10. That makes it easy to multiply. And then 3 times 3 is 9. So 10 times 9 is 90. So 90 is the least common multiple. That means it's the first number, the smallest number, that both 30 and 45 go into. The greatest common factor is 15, which means that's the biggest number that goes into both 30 and 45. So let's try one more real quickly. 60 and 48. 60, I'll use 6 times 10. Neither of those is prime, so I have to break them both down again. 6 is 2 times 3, 10 is 2 times 5. Excuse me, those are all prime. 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. 48, I'm going to use 6 times 8. Neither of those is prime, so break them both down again. 2 times 3, those are both prime. 8 is 4 times 2, only the 2's prime, so I break the 4 down again into 2 times 2. So this one has a bunch of 2's. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Now we're looking for common factors. What do they have in common? Well, they have 2 2's in common, so I crossed out 2 2's on each one, and I'll put that in the middle. Anything else? They have I'll shift it up because I can't see that 3. But they have a 3 in common, so I cross out both the 3's and put a 3 in the middle. So on the 60 side, I have 5 left over. Put that over there. And on the 48 side, I have 2 2's left over. So that's all the work. Drag it down to make some room. Greatest common factor, the ones in common, the factors in common are in the middle. So greatest common factor is 2 times 2 times 3. So that's 4 times 3, which is 12. The least common multiple, we multiply all those numbers together. 5 times 2 times 2 times 3. Well, I already know that's 12, so I can shorten this up a little bit. So 5 times 12, I know those numbers in the middle. The GCF is 12. And then I still have 2 more 2's left over, 2 times 2. So I would multiply all those numbers together, and I'm going to go 5 times 2 is 10. 12 times 2 is 24. 10 times 24 is 240. And you can just do that on the calculator if you want to. So the GCF is 12. The LCM is 240. So both 60 and 48 go into 240, and 12 goes into both 60 and 48. So that's GCF and LCM using the Venn diagram.